welcome to part 7 of Tutomania, where I, your resident Egyptologist, tell you all about King Tutankhamun in celebration of 100 years since we discovered his tomb. I've told you about Tut's life and death, but what happens after the death of a pharaoh? What happens to his widow? Now I'll talk about Tut's burial in the next part, but I wanted to give you guys a little insight of what happens to a great royal wife when the pharaoh dies and leaves no legitimate heirs. Ankh-Senamun was a few years older than him, probably around 21 when he died. And although there were no heirs, there is some indication that Ankh-Senamun might have wanted to keep the throne for herself because she was of royal birth. This theory is based on a document that was found in the ancient Hittite capital of Hattusa in Turkey. These documents date to the Amarna period and are called the Deeds of Supil-u-Liuma I, who was a Hittite ruler at the time. So this is an image of modern Turkey with the Hittite Empire overlaid on top of it. The document was found here in the capital called Hattusa, and it states that while a Hittite ruler was on a siege in a city called Carchemish, which is right over here, he received a letter from an Egyptian queen, and this is what the letter reads. This is actually one of the pieces of the deeds of this ruler. So the letter states, "My husband has died, and I have no son. They say about you that you have many sons. You might give me one of your sons to become my husband. I would not wish to take one of my subjects as a husband. ... I am afraid." So apparently Supil-u-Lima was amazed by this letter and said, "Nothing like this has happened to me in my entire life." This is a pretty extraordinary letter because while pharaohs would take foreign women as wives, they would never rise to the rank of the great royal wife because Egyptians typically saw foreigners as inferior to them. I will also note the identity of this queen is not certain. She is called Dakamuzu in the letter, which is an actual transliteration of the Egyptian title of Ta-he-Metnesu, which is king's wife. Nefertiti and Ankh-Senamun are the most probable because of the time period, but Tut had no heirs, while Akhenaten had at least 2. And some researchers think that the phrase about marrying one of her subjects might be about Ankh-Senamun marrying the vizier Ai, who would become the pharaoh after Tutankhamun. The Hittite king actually did send one of his sons, Zananza, but he supposedly died on the way to Egypt, possibly being murdered, and there's some debate if even the vizier Ai and the Hittite king were sending letters back and forth about that. But Ankh-Senamun probably did end up marrying the vizier Ai, possibly in an attempt to legitimize his rule, and she unfortunately disappeared from the record after that. In the next part, let's finally talk about Tut's burial!